Hi, I'm Mark, producer of Roundtable, the TV series born here in New York City at the legendary Manhattan Neighborhood Network Studios. The exchange of ideas is important, and that is why we bring to you the following presentation. Please watch.
Good evening and welcome to Single Shot Show at Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Tonight we have two guests in our studio, Michael Ernest and Sally Davies. We've seen you guys here and glad to see you again. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and we virtually from the very inception of this program was talking about the notion that photography as a media, as a form of art is going through pretty deep crisis, and we was talking to Michael about this crisis some time ago. Here we got the idea of having you two guys to discuss it. So let's see what Michael have in mind to say about it. The sad state of affairs.
So you're going to blame this on me. I think that I wouldn't say it's necessarily a crisis. I think it's maybe a time of change. There's definitely change that's taking place. I think it's a little too early to decide whether or not we're seeing a crisis. I think what is happening, though, is especially me, and I know probably Sally and even yourself. We, because of our ages, we span this period of time in photography where we have seen an enormous change. I remember the time when a photographer had to invest money and time and intention to be a photographer, and the next best thing was your aunt with a camera taking a snapshot at your birthday, right? And that camera, by the nature of the very equipment, that camera wasn't making a photograph that would be in competition with us.
No.
We invested in good cameras, we invested in the knowledge to know how to use them, and we were making a product that was decidedly different, but that's all changed. Now the aunt at the birthday party has an iPhone, and the iPhone is making...
And the kids have an iPhone too.
And the kids have an iPhone, and the grandmother has an iPhone, and the iPhone is, and I'm not just to privilege Apple, but I mean modern, pocketable cameras are capable of making such great photography, particularly the iPhone, though I will give them that credit because of the algorithms they use. Great photos. So we have ordinary people that are now starting to make really good photos, interesting photos, and because they're making so many of them, we were just talking, prior to the show, there's something like over 1 trillion every year.
1.2 trillion.
1.2. Sally's
Pretty
got the
massive
numbers.
amount, larger than our national debt gainer this year.
I know.
So by math alone, we're going to get a large number of really good photos by just crowdsourcing people and their iPhones.
Just by probabilities, indeed, there would be some great photos. I actually have a pretty interesting story that happened just yesterday. One of our former guests was making a very serious shoot, studio, light setup, everything. So he was there with his Hasselblad taking a shot, and one of the children of the models was right there. He made a snap, and he was so fascinated by the quality of what this kid did with his iPhone that he was questioning whether or not he still need to use the Hasselblad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a good question. Well, what do you? I mean, you're from Hasselblad days, Sally. What do you think?
Yeah.
I never had a Hasselblad. I couldn't afford one, but well, I don't know. I think Hasselblad's going to have to start making different kinds of cameras.
Oh, they already did. They partnered with Sony.
Really?
Yeah.
Boy, I'm out to lunch. What is it that they
They
can...
made a rangefinder based on
Oh,
Sony
no, I do know.
camera.
Yeah, I do know that. I do know that.
But do you think like that you can use a cell phone today and make that this kid could make a photograph that would be in competition with this photographer there with all this fancy equipment and the knowledge behind it? Is this a thing? How do you feel?
Yes and no. I do. I think they can. I think that because no one has to buy film anymore, and digital is sort of free, that if you clickety-click enough images, you're going to get 2 or 3 that are really good. Back in the day, it was too expensive to clickety-click.
Wow.
So you had to make everything count, and that's not true anymore.
Yeah, trigger happy now is definitely much easier than it used to
Yeah.
be. And when we're saying that, yes, the good lighting with the good conditions, iPhone can do whatever it can do, just as well as any other smartphone, it's only part of the thing. Because, yes, I do anticipate that day, and it will come, and probably sooner than we think, when it wouldn't be an excuse. They would have just as many pixels, just as good of the lighting sensitivity, and just as good of the optics as cameras we all used to. That will not be an excuse.
Here's
upon
my
time.
only complaint about all of that, which
Ah.
for just personally, I always take my phone to a shoot, and sometimes I use it even. But the computer part of the phone deciding everything for you, to me, can get a little bit limited. Sometimes you just get something good because it did that for you.
Right.
But
does it matter?
lighting, well, to
If
me
it's
it
good,
does.
in the end, if it's good, if it's good, it's good, right? Isn't it?
No,
No.
Okay.
no. I mean, I know what I want this thing to look like.
Right.
And it's only on a manual camera that I get exactly that. So there's a little bit of a space in there that would have to change a bit.
You see, in my understanding, in the modern world, what we know photography to be becomes in a way obsolete. That's why I'm talking about crisis. And the reason why it becomes obsolete is because it's not as valuable and it's not as important to capture these moments. Precisely because there is so much equipment, there are so many snaps made.
Mm-hmm.
There is no point of just making a beautiful picture of
I
London
agree.
Bridge.
I agree.
Right,
No,
yeah.
I agree,
You
100%. I
you
agree.
can go not even just to Google. If you actually need to print it and use it for something, you can go to one of those websites where you can get stock photography for free.
Yes.
Type in London Bridge. I actually had to
I
do it
agree.
for one of the
Yeah.
projects today. And guess what? I found 50 that was amazing.
Right. And I've often, when I see holiday makers taking photos these days, I'm, like, why? Why bother? I go on vacation now and I don't make photos anymore because what do I need them for? I mean, if I make a photo, it's because someone's in it and it has meaning to me, like you say,
Wow.
personal meaning. But to go on a holiday and just make photos of the bridge or of the cathedral or whatever, it's already on the internet. I can get it when I get home.
So getting back to, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so getting back to our ships, the reason why I was mentioning all this, it's not as relevant to actually capture and archive the reality. What, in my opinion, will be a focus of the media for the years to come is a unique view and approach of the photographer. And for that, ability to control the shot in an old-fashioned, very traditional way, manual focus, you choosing the exposure, angle, everything is instrumental. And that's what will not change. You can't make something like an iPhone to have the whole set of all different lenses that one photographer using. You can't make an iPhone to actually choose to go into the high key when the high key is the only reason why this picture would be taken.
Mm-hmm.
That's what photographer only can decide, and that's where the great photos come in. The good photos are abundant, but I do believe that even with all this flood of good photos, the great photos are still remaining to be on the same number. Would you agree, Sally? What do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking about that today, actually, earlier. Yeah. I don't know. 1.2 trillion digital photos. I still can't get over that.
Well,
It's like, I guess, how many of those are just more pictures of the London Bridge, right? So,
pretty sizable number.
yeah.
I'm not sure that I agree, partially with what you're saying and partially with what you were saying about, the use of the cell phone and being able to make good photos. But I think that there is something to be said for just ending up with a good product. For example, using the cell phone what I'm trying to say really is I don't know if anyone will care
How you got it.
how that photo was made. that there was a person behind there that made a decision to focus this way and to light this way. I don't think the average viewer of a
I
photograph cares about that.
That's for sure.
Especially today. I think the consuming of photographs today, first of all, they're 1 inch by 1.5 inches.
Yeah, that's
mostly.
actually a new exciting change also.
They're seen for 2 seconds, and the judgment is made very quickly and often because of, thank you Instagram, with the photographer remaining anonymous.
Mhm.
Lots of photographers, even lots of well-known photographers on Instagram have handles that don't represent their name, and the photo goes flying by and you see, oh, great photo, I like it. Click like, have no idea who even made this photo.
True.
Absolutely.
So I think that a lot of good photography will be judged as good photography based on that very fleeting experience of the image. And if you can manage to make a better photo than me by doing what you said, manually adjusting the camera, if you can actually make an end product that's better than me with the cell phone, then you'll get the recognition. But I think it's a debate whether or not you can actually do that. I think that's debatable.
Well, we can actually make a button, make it an Instagram to be a judge of that. But we'll get back to this after this short break. Hi, Alex AG again from Single Shot with another single trick. Today I want to tell you about using internal flash of the camera. Even some very professional cameras have that, but if you would ask a professional photographer, including myself, you would be told not to use it, especially on close-ups and especially when you're photographing people. Reason being, when you do it, the face being overblown. You're getting practically a white face instead of having nice skin tones and nice lighting. Is there anything you can do about it? Actually, yes, there is. You can just put in front of your flash a simple dollar bill and take a picture. What it will give you? Dollar bill is made of material thick enough to control enough light, and on top of it, it will give you some nice yellow tone to complement the skin tones of the person. This is a single trick by Single Shot. Watch us on YouTube. So what we was saying that yes, indeed, the viewer never cares about the mechanics of how the photo was made unless they photographer themselves and they're looking at it like, wow, I don't know how it's made. But that's more of a marginal kind of scenario. But what I wanted to mention that probably in the end it depends of what is the objective of the photographer. And that's
The intention.
the theme of the
Right.
whole discussion, whether the photographer wants to become famous, whether he wants to collect all those likes, which become an obsolete anyways on Instagram, or they trying to sell, or they trying to do something else. There are quite a few different reasons for displaying photograph, and for each of them the answer would be in a way different. And talking about monetizing photography and how it actually can turn in the future, as I understand, Sally have some interesting prediction, rather unorthodox, of what could happen.
Well, it's not really a prediction. It was just a bit of a fantasy, but I was thinking how easily we could get to a place where every photo you take on your iPhone is automatically transferred to a huge global data bank. You sign up for that if you want.
Sure.
And then people pay a monthly fee and they just go in there, newspapers, anybody. And for $1, for a small amount of money, they just use your photo and deposit $1 in your PayPal account.
Well, actually, judging by where the big data is going, that might as well one day become to be a reality, just the open market of all available photos. The only problem
Yeah.
would be how it will be searchable, but again,
Well, I
it's also
suspect that the problem is, potentially a legal one in many countries still, and I suspect that because I think that Instagram would be doing this
Already,
if
perhaps.
it were easy to do. I mean, that they almost have the infrastructure in place. They would just simply have to allow people to hit a download and purchase this photo button. And I think that there's still a lot of legality involved. But I can see us
absolutely.
getting to a place where, you click here to sign a waiver.
I mean,
and-
people already troll Instagram and contact people and say, do you want to sell me this photo, or can we use this for our story?
Right.
So that's already going on,
Right.
right? They're already looking there instead of hiring somebody at a lot of money to
I
go.
think you're right, Sally. I think
you
it will
know.
go to something that I hope we're not giving Instagram ideas for free. But if they're I'm sure they're
I'm
watching.
sure they've already had the
Yes.
idea. They're ahead of us, I'm sure.
yeah, I'm
Somebody's
pretty-
talking about it somewhere. I'm certain. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's hanging somewhere in the air. Well, I guess we'll see how it's gonna happen and if it will. Well, we actually touched another very interesting aspect of how photography is changing, and the legal aspect is fascinating field when it comes to photography nowadays, and it's very different in different countries. Just to give an instance, relatively recently it became illegal in many European countries to post face of a
Yes.
person on a street photo
That's
without their consent, and
Yeah.
you're not necessarily getting in trouble by just doing it, but potentially you can.
You can't publish
Right.
it anywhere. You can't do a book. You can't post it online.
Oh,
Yeah,
God
a lot
bless
of those-
America, especially New York. We're safe so far.
Well,
A
the
lot of-
laws allow us to do that here still.
And a lot of
Yes.
those laws are written. A lot of those laws are written so that you can take the photo, but you can't do anything with it. So the act of street photography is still not criminalized, but
Well, I got
But,
chased down the street last
um,
time I was in Paris.
yeah, well, yeah,
by
because,
these two guys that were working at this little food thing, and they were horrified. They actually chased me down the
Yeah.
street.
Yeah, and I'm
Oh,
seeing more of
that actually
that.
can happen in New York too.
I was just going to say, and I'm seeing more of that in New York now, even though I think it's pretty common knowledge that it's okay legally. I think a lot of
Apparently
people.
it's not. I actually personally educated at least a dozen people about this aspect. In not the most friendly manner, I have to say.
Yes, but I suspect some of the people who are chasing me around also know that it's allowable, legally speaking, but that doesn't make it comfortable, right?
Absolutely
and
not.
they have a right to defend their comfort.
Have you ever
As-
seen a
as
photo of
does-
yourself show up randomly on someone else's
No, I
street?
haven't.
But
I
that
haven't,
happened
but
to
I-
me.
Yeah. Oh.
yeah.
Okay.
I was horrified. It was me
Yeah.
and my bike with the dog in the basket.
Yeah.
And I was like, yikes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a teacher, and I as a matter of fact, I
It's
had.
pretty weird.
It's the beginning of the school year, and I had a photographer in my classroom today. Making, tens of photographs a minute. Flash bulbs going off all over the place, and I was very, it was sort of off-putting. I was, but it was intriguing to me that I was so bothered by it because, we are photographers and we go out and jam our cameras in people's faces. And
Well,
and
I
yet
don't do
we
that.
don't like it when it. Well,
That-
you're that's true. You're.
I don't.
Yeah, on street I'm using 200 millimeters, so
Okay, so it-
90%
Oh, are you?
of the problem.
So
Really?
I'm the
Yeah.
bad guy. I'm using the 28 millimeter, and yes, up in people's faces.
So we have the whole range here. Yours is 35, if I remember correctly, favorite one, right?
Yeah.
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 Well, I have a 28 too. I can't carry that zoom.
Well,
It's too heavy.
I actually prefer the heavy cameras in general, so yeah.
You're young and you don't have a bad back yet.
Well, I think if I would have to crawl, I still would use the heavy one. Just that doesn't seem to be photography for me.
Oh, really?
otherwise. Yeah.
And I prefer the cameras where I don't have to think.
Well, you probably will be the first one to switch to cell phones when it
Yeah.
actually would be
Yeah.
possible.
You know what? I would use a cell phone, except it's not fast enough. Otherwise, I
Well,
would
then,
absolutely use the iPhone for my street photography, but it just can't keep up with me in terms of speed. It's just not there yet. And
They improving every year.
oh yeah, I mean it's not terrible, but it's not a Ricoh GR. I mean it's just not, So, but I was thinking when we were talking about the photographer in the classroom, and getting back to what you were saying earlier about what will become of the photographer in this change in photography.
Yes.
And I think that one factor could be ego. It may just come down to who has the ego to go out and say, I'm a photographer, I make art, and this photo is $5,000.
Well, apparently that's what we already have. Photography in that sense is a part of modern art, and essentially it comes to two parameters. Who had enough courage to go out and say it, and who was lucky enough and successful enough to be heard and agreed upon it.
Exactly.
It works for photography just like for painting or any other form of modern art.
Yeah, and then there has to be some kind of system in place for one to get from $100 to $5,000.
And what is the system?
Well, it's crumbling beneath our feet as we sit here. I'm not
Right.
sure. I used to know what it was,
Right.
but
Well, that system actually is changing, and it's changing in the most intriguing ways so far. I'm not sure I have an answer that would even outline the general idea of how it works right now.
Yeah.
Again, 5 years ago, I probably would have a general answer at least to
Right.
part of this question, but right now it really became completely counterintuitive and in many ways very
Well,
logical.
I think that, in the old days, the great old days, because my photograph didn't look like, Aunt Betty's photograph at the birthday party,
right.
me going
Set you apart in a different, put you in a different space.
It was one more, feather in the cap sort of thing when you went into the gallery and said, I'm a photographer, my photographs are worth lots of money, and you really want to, represent me because you're going to make a lot of money and sell a lot of photographs. And here's a photograph. And they would look at it and see something that wasn't like,
the
Aunt
birthday
Betty's.
party, yeah.
Today, I think virtually everyone that goes into a gallery looking for representation is showing relatively decent from technical aspect, and like the photographs are sort of okay a lot more of the time.
Yeah.
Because it goes back to this idea that anyone can sort of get their hands on the tools to make a good photograph. And so I think that it comes down to that person having the ego to say this is art, and also because we don't have that other part anymore, maybe the other part now is still the who you know. And,
The connections
that
and
hasn't gone away.
networking
That hasn't gone away.
became 10 times more important, I would say. We'll get back to this after the break. Today I will be talking about depth of field, so if you're familiar with the concept you can move on to the next episode. But if you're not, I'm often asked how the aperture works besides just controlling how much light gets into a camera and how light or dark your image is. And in simple words, the larger your opening of the aperture is, the smaller will be distance on which your camera is focused. And if you would photograph something like this branch with the open aperture, you will get the image that is focused only on the certain distance, something like this. But if you close it all the way down and take the same picture, you will get the almost the whole plane, everything like this, to be in focus. And in one case you will get more focused attention of the viewer on a specific part of your photograph. So we're back, we have only a few minutes left, and Sally said something ingenious when we was on this break, so what was
It's all about the buyer to me. All the roads that you talk about end up, who's buying this now? What do they want to buy? Do they want to buy anything? They have their own iPhone. What are they, are they going into a gallery?
And when iPhone will be able to deliver enough pixels to print it on a size of a wall, that will become even more essential question.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think you're right, and it always did come down to the buyer. Obviously, there has to be a market for whatever we're creating.
Indeed.
And I think, just to reiterate my point, I think it's I think the person is going to buy something because my name is on it, or your name is on it.
Exactly.
And we have to have a brand, or we have to have something
Yes.
behind this name.
Yes, but
that
that's always
makes-
been so, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, so maybe in all these things we talk about all this change.
I
Maybe
think-
nothing has changed.
I think that it doesn't change. I think all the Hazarai around it changes. How do
'Cause
you
Alex,
get there?
You said networking is still vital, and it always has
Absolutely,
been.
yes.
Who you know has always been a thing in the art world.
The
And
The difference is not whether or not you need to network. The difference is not whether or not it's essential to sell art piece. The difference is the amount of competition. This number that Sally was mentioning in the beginning, 1.2 trillion photos per how long?
year,
In a year.
yeah.
Per annum.
Yeah.
But that's,
That is actually something that is a game changer. It's easy to build a brand when there is Pepsi and Coke. It's much harder to build a brand when there are 50,000
yeah,
things that have cola on them.
yeah.
And
And it is
that's
still
the situation that is
it
there.
is still the brand, and I think it's we see this with all kinds of. I'm a watch collector, for example, and you can buy a watch that works perfectly for $50. Like you cannot get more technical perfection in a $50 watch, but that's not what watch collectors are interested in.
Oh,
And you can
absolutely.
also spend a few $1,000s to buy a watch that is mechanically comparable to a $20,000 or $30,000 watch. But again, the collector wants the $20,000 or $30,000 watch because it is the Audemars Piguet and not the Pelton, which, by the way, I'm wearing, and it's a great American-made brand.
Go America.
You might have to edit that out, but no. But it's it's the name. It's the name on the dial or the name on the photo that sells the photo or sells the watch.
Well, then I guess we need to continue building our names and hopefully, in a way, creating something that would still be unique and beautiful. Thank you very much, folks. It was a beautiful conversation. We probably will need to extend
Go
it
again.
a little bit, yes,
Yeah.
at some point.
Great.
It was a pleasure seeing you
Thank you.
again.
Always nice to
Thank
be
you
here.
very much.
Always nice to be here.
I hope you found that worth watching as much as I did. I'm Mark for Roundtable. Thanks for watching. See you next week.